Ellie
For
May
generations,
permanently.
America chuckled at the
Douglas
antics of
received
Jane
offers,
Clampett,
but
Ellie
many
May,
came with
Jethro, and
conditions she
Grammy,
refused
seeing
to
them as
accept.
symbols of
Roles
simplicity
that
and charm.
conflicted with her
The
beliefs,
cast, Buddy
scenes
Eson,
she
Donna
felt
Douglas,
compromised
Max
the
Baer
dignity
Jr.,
she had worked
and
to
Irene
protect.
Ryan became faces
Each
of
refusal
comfort,
narrowed her
appearing
path
week after
further.
week in living rooms
Instead of
across the
evolving,
nation.
her career
On
stalled
screen,
under the
life
weight of
seemed lighthearted.
expectation.
Off-screen,
She later
reality
acknowledged
was
that
far
staying
more
true to the
complicated.
character cost
What
her
audiences
opportunities she would
rarely
never get
understood
back.
was that success
Yet she
came with a
chose
price.
loyalty over
The very
reinvention,
roles that brought
even
fame
when
and
it left her
adoration
professionally
also
isolated.
became invisible cages,
For Max Baer
locking the
Jr.,
actors
the
into
struggle was
characters that
more openly
overshadowed their
bitter.
true selves.
As Jethro
Their
Bodine,
personal
he
identities were
leaned fully
gradually
into the physical
consumed by
comedy,
public
building a
expectation,
character
leaving them
audiences
struggling
found
to separate the
unforgettable.
performer from the
But
performance.
behind the scenes,
Buddy
Baer was
Eson, the man
ambitious,
behind Jade
analytical,
Clampett,
and
approached the
focused on
show
the
with the
future.
perspective of a
He
seasoned
studied
performer.
production, absorbed
Vaudeville,
directing
film, and
techniques,
television
and
had
envisioned a
already shaped
life
his career.
beyond playing
He
the fool.
expected the Beverly
Hollywood,
Hillbillies
however,
to be just
refused to
another
listen.
chapter, a
Studio
temporary
meetings
role that
ended
would
the same
fade as
way,
quickly as it
with
rose.
laughter,
What happened
dismissal,
instead
and the
was
same
total
line
identification
repeated
with a
back to
character
him.
that would define him
"You're
for decades.
Jethro."
As
Years
the series
passed
climbed to
before Baer could
unprecedented
fund his own
popularity,
projects
audiences
and
stopped
prove he was
seeing
more
Eson
than the
as an
role that
actor.
defined
He was
him.
Jade.
But by then,
Public
the
appearances,
damage was done.
interviews, and fan
The
letters
success
all
that launched
reinforced
him
this
had
singular
also
identity.
delayed him.
Privately, Eson admitted to a growing
The
sense
show
of
that could
frustration,
never grow.
realizing that the nuance he brought to the
From
role
the
was being
outside,
flattened into
the Beverly
a stereotype.
Hillbillies looked
They stopped
effortless.
seeing me, he
Episodes
confessed.
flowed quickly,
They only saw
jokes
the hat.
landed cleanly,
Donna
and the audience
Douglas,
never
who
seemed to
played
tire
Ellie
of the
May Clampett,
Clampett family's
experienced a different kind
misadventures.
of challenge.
Inside the
Overnight,
studio,
she
however,
became a
the
national
show was
symbol of
governed
innocence
by
and
one
charm.
unbreakable
While
rule:
adored by fans,
nothing that
the
worked
industry no
was
longer
allowed
saw
to
her as a
change.
versatile actress. They only
Creator
saw
Paul
Ellie May.
Henning had a clear
Casting
vision:
directors
simple
offered roles that
characters,
conflicted with her
exaggerated
personal
contrasts,
values,
and
narrowing
humor
her
built on
professional
repetition.
path despite her talent.
CBS embraced
Douglas
that
made a
formula
conscious
not
choice:
because it was
loyalty to her
artistically daring,
principles over
but
career
because it was
opportunism.
reliable.
She turned down
Ratings
projects that
ruled
compromised
everything,
the dignity she
and as
worked
the
to
numbers
maintain.
soared, the
In
space
doing
for
so,
creative
she
discussion
quietly
quietly
paid the price of
vanished.
professional isolation.
Several
Her
cast members,
refusal to bend to
particularly
industry
Buddy
demands
Ebsen,
became a
began to
statement of
feel the
personal
strain
conviction,
early.
though it came at
With
the cost
decades
of
of performance
visibility and
experience
career
behind him,
advancement.
Ebsen understood
Max Baer
character
Jr.,
rhythm and
who
emotional
played
grounding.
Jethro, faced yet
Occasionally,
another
he
form of
suggested
struggle.
small
He
adjustments,
embraced physical comedy
lines that
fully,
hinted at
becoming a
Jed
fan
Clampett's
favorite,
past,
but off camera,
moments of
he was
reflection that could
analytical,
add depth
ambitious,
without
and
breaking
intent on
tone.
growing beyond the role.
According to
He
former
studied
writers,
directing,
Ebsen
production,
argued
and
that even a
storytelling,
simple man
hoping to
carried
expand his
history.
career beyond the character.
A man doesn't talk
Hollywood,
like that
however,
unless he's got
refused to
scars,
listen,
he once
repeatedly
said during a
confining him
script
to the
discussion.
persona audiences
The response
adored.
was always polite,
Each attempt
always
Baer made to
final.
step outside
His
Jethro's
lines
shadow
were
was met with
rewritten to
dismissal.
lean harder into
Studio executives
punchlines.
laughed off his
The audience,
ambitions,
the producers
reducing him again
insisted,
and again to
didn't
one
want
note.
nuance.
"You're Jethro."
They wanted
Years
familiarity.
later, when he finally
Over
managed
time,
to fund
those
projects of his own,
conversations
the
stopped.
impact of lost
Ebsen
time and
did what the
delayed
system
opportunity
rewarded.
remained palpable.
He showed up, delivered
Success, in
exactly
this
what was
case,
expected,
became both gift
and went
and
home.
burden.
In private,
At first
he
glance,
reportedly
the
referred
Beverly
to the job
Hillbillies appeared
as a
effortless.
paycheck with a laugh
Episodes
track.
flowed naturally,
It wasn't
jokes landed
bitterness,
consistently,
it was
and viewers
resignation.
remained enchanted.
The same
But
tension
inside
played
the
out
studio,
across the
a rigid
cast.
philosophy dominated.
Ideas that
Nothing
explored
that
class
worked could be
difference more
altered.
seriously
Creator Paul
or allowed
Henning,
relationships
alongside
to
CBS
evolve
executives,
were quietly
prioritized
shelved.
repeatable formulas over
CBS
creative
executives
evolution.
feared alienating viewers who
Familiarity, not
tuned in for
innovation,
comfort,
dictated
not
the show's
reflection.
trajectory.
Any hint of growth was seen
Eson,
as
with decades
risk.
of
The
experience
pressure
in character
intensified
work,
as the show
occasionally
expanded its
proposed subtle
reach.
enhancements,
CBS
moments
viewed the
that added
Beverly
depth or
Hillbillies
hinted at
not
Jade's
just as a
history.
hit series,
These
but as a
suggestions were politely
franchise.
dismissed,
Executives
rewritten to
pushed for
favor punchlines
crossover
over
appearances
emotional
with
truth.
other rural comedies,
Audiences wanted
treating the
laughs.
characters
The
like
producers
interchangeable
insisted,
pieces
not
rather
insight.
than a family
Over
unit.
time, the
While some
conversation
cast
stopped
members
entirely,
accepted the
leaving the
exposure,
cast to perform
others felt
within
it
strict
diluted what
confines.
little grounding the show had
Behind the
left.
camera, the pressure
Ebsen, in
intensified.
particular,
The show's
resisted.
growing
He
popularity
believed
led
the
CBS
strength
to
of the
treat
series
characters
came
as a
from its
franchise,
internal
pushing
dynamic,
crossover
not from
appearances
gimmicks
and public
designed to
stunts.
test audience
While
response.
such exposure seemed
When
advantageous,
outside
for
characters
many
were
actors it
inserted into
diluted their
scripts
artistic
without cast
integrity.
input, he
Eson,
reportedly
in
walked
particular,
off set in
resisted these
protest.
gimmicks,
The
believing
message
that
was
the show's
clear.
strength lay in its
Cooperation was
internal fan
expected,
dynamic
not
rather than
negotiation.
external spectacle.
Behind the scenes, financial
Contractual
realities
restrictions
added another layer of quiet
frustration.
resentment. Despite being part of one of the most watched shows in America, the cast was locked into rigid contracts. There were no bonuses tied to ratings, no residuals from reruns. As the series replayed year after year, generating steady revenue for the network, the people who gave it life earned nothing beyond their original pay. Donna Douglas later spoke about this imbalance with calm honesty.
Irene
"We
Ryan,
made the world
a veteran
laugh,"
stage
she
performer,
said.
approached comedy
"We
with
just didn't
precision,
realize how
valuing
little they'd
timing
let
and
us keep."
control. Max Bear Jr., by
Smiles on
contrast,
camera,
thrived
silence
on
offset.
spontaneity and physical improvisation.
While the public saw unity and
methods
warmth,
clashed,
the
revealing
reality
the
on
delicate
set was
balance
far
between
more
instinct
fragile.
and discipline in comedic
Long-running
performance.
success doesn't just test
One rehearsal
creativity,
highlighted
it
this
tests
tension.
patience,
Bear
ego,
ad-libbed
and
a line,
endurance.
inadvertently
As the
upstaging
seasons
Ryan.
stacked up,
While
the
the
cast
audience
of the
laughed,
Beverly Hillbillies
backstage
began to feel the
reactions
weight
were
of
starkly
repetition,
different.
and small
Ryan
differences
confronted
quietly
Bear,
hardened into lasting
emphasizing the
distance.
importance of focus and
Nowhere
timing.
was this more
Though Bear
evident than in the
apologized,
relationship
the
between
incident left a
Irene
lasting
Ryan,
mark,
who played
turning
Granny,
previously
and
easy
Max Bear
camaraderie
Jr.,
into
the
careful
youngest of the main
professionalism.
cast. On screen,
Exhaustion
their
compounded these
chemistry was
stresses.
undeniable.
Irene Ryan's
Granny's
dedication
sharp
pushed her to
tongue
physical
and Jethro's
extremes.
eager
When
foolishness
hospitalization
created
for
some of the
exhaustion
show's
became
most
necessary,
memorable moments.
producers quietly
Off-screen,
suggested
their
altering her
working
workload.
styles could not have
She
been more
refused.
different.
Returning to
Ryan
set
was a
weakened but
seasoned stage
determined,
performer
she delivered
who
lines
valued
with her
timing,
trademark
structure,
energy,
and precision.
collapsing shortly
She treated
afterward
comedy
in a
like
private moment
music.
of crisis
Every
unseen
beat
by
mattered.
fans.
Bear, by
Loyalty
contrast,
intertwined with
favored
frustration.
instinct and
The cast endured
improvisation.
long hours,
He studied
strict
physical comedy
contracts, and
closely,
intense public
borrowing
scrutiny,
techniques
all
from
while
silent
maintaining an
film
image of
legends,
harmony.
and often
Smiles
adjusted
on
movements
camera
or
concealed the
delivery in the
private
moment to
strain each
heighten a
actor
laugh.
faced, a
What he
performance
saw
extending
as
beyond
craft,
scripts into daily
Ryan
survival.
sometimes viewed as
Eson carried his
disruption.
personal grief into his
According
role,
to crew
using
members, the
reflective
tension
pauses and
surfaced
subtle
during a
silences
rehearsal
as
when
coping
Bear ad-libbed a
mechanisms that
line that
audiences
shifted
interpreted
attention
as
away
acting
from Ryan's
brilliance.
planned punchline.
As the series progressed,
The moment
these
landed with the
pressures shaped
audience,
interactions,
but it landed
creative
wrong
contributions,
backstage.
and the very rhythm of
Ryan
work.
reportedly
The
confronted
actors
him
learned
afterward,
early that
making
open
it clear
dissent
that
could label
focus
them
was not
difficult,
something to be
so they
taken lightly.
adapted,
Bear
enduring
apologized
quietly while
immediately,
preserving
but the damage
professionalism.
lingered.
The personal
From that point
sacrifices
on, their
behind each
interactions
laugh
became
were
strictly
rarely recognized
professional.
outside the
They
studio
performed
walls.
flawlessly together,
Even in
but the
quieter
ease was
moments,
gone.
the weight of fame
Exhaustion
pressed
made
on.
everything worse.
Scenes of
The
reflection
production
or
schedule
subtle
was
emotional
relentless,
depth were
with
often
long
motivated
shooting
by
days
personal
and little
circumstances,
downtime.
unnoticed
Irene
by
Ryan,
viewers.
already pushing
Eson's
herself
moments of
physically,
pause,
refused to
Douglas's
slow
adherence
down.
to principle, Bear's ambition.
When she was hospitalized
Each
with
became
severe
private acts of
exhaustion,
defiance
producers
within the show's
quietly
broader
discussed
formula of
rewriting an
repetition and
episode to reduce her
predictability.
workload.
When the
She
Beverly
rejected the
Hillbillies
idea
concluded
outright.
amid CBS's role
Ryan
purge,
returned
the
to set
abrupt end
pale
left
and
the
visibly
cast
weakened,
unprepared for the void.
delivering her lines with the
Roles
same
disappeared,
force she always
auditions
had.
ceased, and the careers they
2
had
days
built
later,
became tethered
she
to
collapsed
characters
at home.
audiences refused
The
to
incident
forget.
was never
The comfort
publicized,
viewers
but those who
experienced
witnessed it
contrasted
understood
starkly with
something
the
fundamental
instability
had
the
shifted.
cast now faced.
The laughter the audience
For Buddy
enjoyed
Eson,
came at a physical
reinvention
cost
came
no
later
one
through
outside the
roles
studio
like
ever
Barnaby
saw.
Jones, yet the
Behind
shadow
the
of Jade
scenes,
Clampett
loyalty
lingered.
coexisted with
Fans and
frustration.
journalists alike still reference the
Despite personal
character,
differences,
reminding
the
him that the
cast
public
shared a
often
quiet
retains the version
bond
of a
rooted in
performer it loves
circumstance.
most,
They knew
regardless of
they were
reality.
underpaid.
This
They knew their
realization, that
contracts offered
legacy
no
is chosen
long-term
by others,
protection,
not by
and they knew
oneself,
that complaining
was one of the
openly
most
would only
profound
brand them
lessons
as
for those who
difficult.
made America
So they
laugh.
endured.
Donna Douglas
They
chose a
smiled
path
through
few could
interviews,
understand.
signed
After
autographs,
years of being
and
eternally
maintained
seen
the
as Ellie
illusion of
May,
harmony
she
because
walked
that was
away
what
from
the
Hollywood
machine
rather than
demanded.
compromise her values.
Buddy Ebsen
While
carried
many
his
might have
own
viewed it
private
as
grief
surrender,
into the work.
she reframed it as
In
choice,
one late-season
deciding
episode,
that personal
Jed
integrity
reflects
and
briefly
faith
on his
mattered more
past
than
life in the
fleeting fame
hills.
or lucrative
The scene
offers.
stood out to viewers for
Douglas
its stillness.
dedicated herself to
Ebsen
causes that
added
mattered
pauses
to her,
that weren't in the
speaking at
script,
schools,
moments of
prisons,
silence
and
that felt
churches,
heavy with
writing
meaning.
and mentoring.
Fans
She
praised the
transformed
performance.
public
Crew
admiration
members
into
later
something
revealed that
lasting,
Ebsen had
sharing
lost a
lessons
close
about
friend the night
self-worth and
before
conviction.
filming. What
In a
the
world
audience
obsessed with
interpreted as
image,
acting
she
was simply a
refused to
man
let Ellie
unable
May
to fully
define her
hide his
entirely.
sorrow. In moments
Max
like
Bear
that,
Jr.
the line
faced
between
the opposite
character and
struggle.
actor
Where
blurred
Douglas opted
completely.
out, Bear fought to reclaim control of
When
his
the
narrative.
laughter stopped,
He invested
so
in
did the
production,
calls.
pursued new projects, and tried
When
to
the Beverly
redefine what it
Hillbillies
meant to be
quietly
Jethro.
disappeared from the
Yet the
schedule,
industry's memory
there was no
proved difficult
warning,
to shake.
no farewell,
CBS
and no
Hollywood
celebration
alike
of
were
what the
slow
show
to
had
separate
meant
actor
to
from
American
character.
television. The decision came as part of CBS's broader shift away from rural programming, a move later known as the Rural Purge. Overnight, series that had once dominated ratings were deemed outdated. For the Clampettes, the end was abrupt. One week they were still part of millions of living rooms. The next they were gone. The shock wasn't just professional, it was personal. For nearly a decade, the cast's lives had revolved around the show's rhythm. Suddenly, that structure vanished. Agents stopped calling. Auditions dried up. Studios that once courted them now saw them as liabilities, frozen in time by characters audiences refused to forget. Hollywood had already enjoyed what they provided. Now it was finished with them. Buddy Ebsen was the rare exception. He managed to reinvent himself later with Barnaby Jones, finally stepping into a role that allowed him to shed some of Jed Clampe's shadow. Yet even then, he noticed how the public greeted him. Interviews drifted back to the hills. Fans asked about Granny, Jethro, and the mansion in Beverly Hills. Ebsen understood something painful but unavoidable. You don't get to choose which version of yourself the world keeps. Privately, he wrestled with that reality. Near the end of his life, he admitted that legacy was not something an actor controls, only something they learn to live with. For Donna Douglas, the end marked a clean break. Disillusioned with Hollywood, she walked away rather than chase roles that would ask her to betray the image she had protected for years. Instead of fighting the industry, she left it behind. Douglas turned toward faith, writing, and public speaking. She visited schools, prisons, and churches, speaking openly about self-worth and conviction. While others might have seen her departure as surrender, Douglas framed it differently. She believed Ellie May had given people comfort, and she chose to honor that bond rather than dismantle it. Not everyone gets to play a role that makes people happy for 50 years, she once said, without regret. Max Baer Jr. took a harder path. Refusing to accept obscurity, he poured his energy into business and production. He invested, financed projects, and tried repeatedly to step out from under Jethro's shadow. Some ventures succeeded. Others collapsed under the weight of association. Even when he fought CBS over the use of Jethro's likeness, it wasn't about money alone. It was about recognition. "I don't own Jethro," he once said, "but Jethro shaped my entire career." The bitterness lingered, not because he hated the role, but because the industry never allowed him to move past it. The secret hidden in plain sight. For decades, the Beverly Hillbillies was dismissed as simple comedy, easy laughs, broad characters, harmless escapism. Critics mocked it as lowbrow. Executives treated it as disposable. But time has a way of revealing layers that were invisible in the moment. And what has emerged through interviews, recollections, and quiet confessions is a far more complex portrait than most fans ever imagined. One of the most revealing details lies in something audiences barely noticed. Throughout the series, the Clampettes rarely referred to their mansion as home. In the scripts, it was consistently described as that house in Beverly Hills. This was not accidental. Writers, at the encouragement of cast members, deliberately avoided the language of belonging. No matter how wealthy the Clampettes became, they were never allowed to fully settle. The idea was subtle but intentional. Success did not equal acceptance. Comfort did not erase longing. It was a quiet acknowledgement that no matter how far you rise, part of you remains anchored to where you came from. That sense of displacement mirrored the cast's own experience in Hollywood. They were central to one of the most popular shows in television history, yet they never truly belonged to the industry that profited from them. Their characters were celebrated, but their ambitions were contained. Their performances were praised, but their futures were restricted. In that way, the Clampettes' fish-out-of-water existence became a coded reflection of the actors' own lives, misfits navigating a system that never fully embraced them. Max Baer Jr. understood this better than most. As Jethro, he played a man perpetually chasing new identities. Brain surgeon, secret agent, executive, always failing, always resetting. Audiences laughed at the absurdity. But years later, Baer acknowledged that the joke cut closer than anyone realized. Like Jethro, he spent much of his career trying to prove he was capable of more than the role that defined him. The difference was that Baer's struggle was real, and the stakes were permanent. Donna Douglas carried a similar contradiction. Ellie May's innocence was treated as naivete, yet Douglas herself demonstrated extraordinary resolve. While the character remained untouched by ambition,